Wanted to talk a little bit about getting left behind in life. Um, Sometimes it's hard to accept that as you get older, things change, people change, circumstances change. There are additions being made to your surroundings, whether, your siblings have children, whether, um, I don't know, somebody adopts a dog, like there are always going to be these changes in life that are just always like making your life evolve. And an unfortunate result of some of that evolution oftentimes is that we get left behind. um, think about it. When you were a teenager and you had your friend group and you guys had all the free time in the world, you guys would hang out all the time, right? You guys would go to the park, play basketball, ride bikes, go eat, hang out. And then as you get older, maybe your homies get a girlfriend. Maybe one of your friends has a son. One of your friends gets married or in a very serious relationship. And, what's the first thing the girl's going to tell him? Hey, you gotta leave your friends. You gotta hang out with me. So, your friend and in his desire to get puss, he'll leave you behind. Your friend that had a kid, he doesn't have time anymore to hang out. He has to work a job. He has to be a wagey. He has all these responsibilities that he can no longer really entertain you anymore, right? Or people get married, people change, and you'll always end up getting left behind. Especially as an unattractive man or a guy who just doesn't have any popularity, any clout, anything like that, anything to offer really. You're just gonna get left behind, right? And it's just crazy. It's crazy how it all works, man. Like the older you get, you just start getting left in the past. People, maybe you see some people here and there, and they only remember you from like the past because they don't interact with you anymore. And that's normal, but it does hurt. It does hurt when everybody around you, like everybody you like once thought were a part of your life, they're just evolving, and as a part of their evolution, you're just getting left in the dust. That's happened to me. Um, with my family, a lot of my family, they're normal people, man. They have normal lives. They have partners and these responsibilities and stuff, and as a result, I'm not in contact with them as much. They don't have time to talk to me. They don't hang out with me. I'm not included. Like even like you'll get left behind in social groups in the sense that you'll no longer get included in things. You'll like you were once involved and taken into consideration, and you're no longer not. Especially like I said, especially as like people start getting more quote unquote serious with like children and career and these jobs and these responsibilities. The more serious it gets for people, the more likely it is that you're gonna just get left behind. People just aren't gonna have time for you anymore. People are especially if you're, like I said, if you're an excess man, more than likely you won't have a wife or children, and people won't interpret that as, man, this guy has bad luck in love. This guy is he's TFL. They're not going to interpret it as that. They're going to interpret it as you're not serious, you're not evolving, you're not moving forward, you're stuck in the past. So as an excess man, you best believe you're going to get left behind, because all the people that you grew up with, all the people that were a part of your social circle at one point, they're going to continue to have children. They're going to continue to do all these things. And they're all just going to think you're a man child. They're all going to think that you're immature and you don't want to evolve and you want to be a kid always. You always want to be a kid. You always want to be playing video games and drinking Mountain Dew and eating Gushers. And reality is, you just got left behind, man. You simply got left behind. You got left behind in love. You got left behind in career. Think about it. The older you get, most jobs aren't going to want to hire you. You know, if you go to apply at a job at McDonald's, your competition are 18-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 20-year-olds, and if you're in your late 20s or in your 30s or 40s, you best believe the managers are going to scratch their head wondering why you haven't had a serious career, why you're this old applying at McDonald's. And just that thought alone is going to be enough to not make you get hired. Like look at like the military thing, right? Um, like the military has a cutoff age, and obviously we know it's because of physical stuff. You know, as a soldier, you got to carry a backpack and stuff, and the older you get, you just got left behind. Certain opportunities leave you. You know, like most of us were probably in our late 20s. Like college is not really an option anymore. Yeah, we could go to college, be that 40-year-old, 30-year-old in college, surrounded by 18-year-olds. But if in the grand scheme of it, truth be told, you got left behind already. That option is not an option anymore, and it hurts because the older you get, the more you get left behind, the less options you have. I'm older now. I don't really have anybody I could really hang out with like that. Not that I even want to, but like I'm just left behind, man. My siblings are out there doing their thing. My friend groups from when I was a high schooler, they're out there doing their thing. And I just got left in the past, man. I'm a memory for a lot of them. Maybe they think of me and they think of the good times that we had, but they know they can't continue with me because guess what? I've never had a girlfriend. And what does never having a girlfriend do? It's like they're gonna forever view you as a child, as a third wheel. These are people that are trying to go on double dates. These are people with girlfriends that are trying to find other couples to uh, do quote unquote couple things, quote unquote adult things and stuff. And when you're a guy that's never had love and probably won't ever get love, like I said, it's going to be really hard to get rid of that stigma of you're just a man child, and they're going to leave you they're going to leave you behind, man. You're not going to get the invitation. You're not going to get the they're not going to invite you to the cruise. They're not going to invite you to the wedding. They're not going to invite you to the kid's first birthday because they just think of you as a big kid. They just think of you as this guy that doesn't want to change. They just think of you as this guy that wants to just play video games all the time. But the reality is you just got left behind, man. Society just evolved and you didn't evolve with it because of certain circumstances. And now you're left behind, right? And it's crazy, It's like I'm about to be 30 and the idea of having like a girlfriend seems impossible because I'm so old, I'm like left behind, right? And it's sad, man. It's sad how like you just start becoming a thing of the past. You become obsolete. You become antiquated. You just become a thing that you just become a person that just doesn't fit the new era, man. So people are gonna leave you behind. How many of you guys have friends or had friend groups and you guys were buddies. You guys had plans of, we're gonna move together, man. We're gonna have a gaming house. You guys had all these plans, and you guys get older, and all of a sudden you're not up to the standard, and you got left behind. People don't want to contact you anymore. People think you're a goof. People think you're silly. That you just don't. That you're not serious. That you're a clown, and those are all results of just getting left behind in life, man. Because if you were able to keep up, if you were to have been born a normal human, you'd have been able to keep up. You'd have been able to, like there are certain milestones for every person. I mean, society tells us these are milestones, but at the end of the day, we have to go based off what society says because that's society. It's like none of us are out here gonna be starting our own countries, so at the end of the day, what society thinks is unfortunately the reality that's going to be perceived. So when you get left behind, like society is just gonna, like I said, they're gonna think you're goofy. They're gonna think you're a child. They're gonna think you're not serious, and it's gonna be real unfortunate. Like what are the milestones, right? People they expect you to go off to college at 18. They expect you to have a serious job, serious career by 23. Maybe they expect you to have, be proposed and proposing to a woman by 20, 25, 26. And then people expect you to have your first child maybe by the time you hit 28. And if you don't fulfill those milestones, if you don't fill those check boxes, in the eyes of all society, you're going to forever be a little kid. And when people view you as a little kid, they're going to leave you behind. They're not going to want to incorporate you into their new life. Have you ever seen some guy, maybe you went to school with him and he's homeless and he's like strung out on drugs, and you look at him and you like remember who he was, and then you see who he is now and you're like, I can no longer associate with him. That's the same thing that society will do to you simply if you don't meet those milestones. And unfortunately, you're gonna be the one that suffers the consequences. You're gonna be the one that has to take the butt of the load, because you're gonna be the one dealing with the solitude. You're gonna be the one dealing with being isolated and outcasted, and no longer wanting to be invited. I had this recent event that happened like last year where I had this cousin, and we were around the same age, and we were like cool. We were pretty cool, I would say. And he has his girlfriend, and they ended up getting married, and he never invited me to his wedding. Like I never received an invitation. Like I never even received like, hey man, I'm getting married this weekend. You want to come through? None of that. Nothing. Like I was completely left out in the dark of this. And like I said, this is a guy that I thought if he got married, I would at least receive an invitation. I really thought that. And I remember seeing him get married, and like a bunch of other people that I know, a bunch of other people that I would expect maybe said like, hey, you didn't invite him. They were all there, and it made me realize I got left behind, man. It made me realize none of these people here care about me at all. None of these people here want me to be a part of their life in the future. None of these people want me to be a part of their life as we go on. And obviously, I'm not a beggar. I'm not going to be there begging them like, hey man, why didn't you invite me? I'm upset. But it did make me realize that these are people who have left me behind, and they don't, they it's like life is like a car, right? And you have your people in the car, and you guys are driving, going through life, and these people literally like kicked me out of the car and freaking told me to, good luck. That's what it felt like when I saw that. I'm not gonna lie, it did hurt me in the sense that it B-pilled me. It was a B-pill missile, because back in the day, we used to talk, about stuff like, oh, when you get married, we're gonna party like crazy, this and that. And when time did come for him to get married, he pretty much didn't want me around, because more than likely he associates me with childish behavior. He probably thinks I'm quote unquote not up to his level, and it's unfortunate to see that. It's unfortunate to feel the rejection and the people not wanting you around simply because you don't fit certain milestones. You didn't acquire certain milestones, and you don't check certain boxes, and because of that, they decided to leave you in the past. They decided that you weren't worthy of being a part of their celebration. And that type of stuff, that, when you see that type of stuff, man, it really does open your eyes to the reality of these people don't rock with you, man. These people left you behind. You're nothing to these people anymore. These people probably never even cared about you, because who would not invite somebody to their wedding? Like your wedding is supposed to be this very very sacred event, this very serious event where you invite people who mean something to you because you want their presence. And realizing that I'm no longer in a lot of these people's Um, I'm no longer in these people's like social circles. It just made me realize like, damn, I got left behind, man. These people, they don't want me around. So because of that, I'm smart enough to not try to be around these people. Sometimes people, they'll wonder why you don't want to hang out with people, because I know you don't want to hang out with me. That's why. I know you don't care about me. I know you left me behind. It always hurts when you see people that leave you behind. It always hurts because if you were still in good mental health and you had an active social life, you would incorporate them. And then you see them not incorporating you, and it just really does open your eyes to the fact that these people don't want you around. These people probably hate you. These people probably despise you. These people probably think little of you. They think you're beneath them. They think that you're not worthy of being around them. And those are all consequences of being left behind, man. Being left behind, you're no longer a part of the in crowd, and you just have to deal with that, right? And obviously, I've never really cared about being a part of the in crowd, but it is kind of upsetting when you realize that you're toast, man. In the eyes of society, you're toast. None of these people want you around. None of these people that you once considered to be friends want you around. Like one of my friends, he had like a son, and he never even told me. He never even told me that he was having a son. I just remember like going on Instagram and seeing him with his son, and what the hell? Like this is some guy I was buddy with, man. This is some guy I genuinely thought of as like a brother, and he has a child, and he doesn't even let me know. He doesn't even like hit me up like, hey, loner, hey, man, I'm having a son. Like nothing like that. It just proves to you these people, like, they don't think of you anymore. You're left behind, man. You're last week's paper. You're old news, man. It's over for you. These people don't want to hang out with you. And, dealing with that, it is tough sometimes, man. Dealing with the fact that people don't want you around. It is tough because, as a human, obviously you want to be a part of something. You want to be a part of a crowd. You want to be a part of a social group. And when you just realize that everybody around you who you thought were like something with you, they left you behind. They're just doing their own thing. They're getting married. They're getting engaged. They're making these big moves, and like I said, obviously you shouldn't expect anyone to save you, but it's just like, damn, I can't even get an invitation. Like I can't even get get a heads up, like, hey man, getting married. Hey man, I'm a father. Hey guy that I was hella cool with, I'm gonna have a son. You couldn't do that to me. You couldn't do that for me. Because it's like, I know I'm antisocial and stuff, but damn, I'm really, I really got left behind, man. It hurts. It hurts, man, to just get left behind in life. To just like, you just start getting older and you don't fit in anywhere. You can't go to college. You can't even get certain jobs anymore because of your age. And, the older you get and the less you have, it's going to just be harder and harder for you to catch up. Like now, where I'm at, I'm in such a deep hole that if I ever want to not be left behind by society and by everybody, I'm gonna have to do so much work. Like I'm gonna have to do like so much. I'm gonna have to make miracles happen, man. Like how the heck am I gonna how am I gonna be a part of society and catch up with society when women don't even want to be with me? When the men in my life, the homies in my life, don't even want me to be a part of their events. How am I supposed to catch up? That's why, like I said, if you're an excess man, if you're a loner, you have to really hit a place in life where you're okay with the fact that everybody and everything has left you behind, man. Everybody and everything moves on, bro. Sometimes, like, that's why I don't really get caught up in nostalgia too much, because I realize that I got left behind and there's nothing and no one for me from the past. Even if I went back to the good old days, even if I went back to 2014, no one would be there. There would be nothing there because everybody moved on. Everybody left me behind. That's why it's so dangerous when you're a guy that gets stuck in the past, because you think everybody's still there. You think it's as easy as it was back then. You think that you could just reach your hand out and tap back into the old you, the old friendships, the old relationships. But all that has moved on, and they've left you behind, man. That's why you'll see. Have you guys ever seen those those old boomers that they'll watch like nothing but TV shows and listen to nothing but music from their era. They're watching nothing but black and white movies and stuff, and they're there all nostalgic and stuff, and they got left behind, man. They got left behind by the entire globe. Like, it's insane how this works. It's insane how life just moves on, and sometimes it moves on from you. Sometimes life has to move on, and you're just a burden, and it's gonna just continue without you. That's why I say life is like a car, life is like a train, and whether you hopped on that train or you didn't, it just it's gonna mean everything, man. I never hopped on the train, because I couldn't. I never had a ticket. I was never given a ticket, so I got left behind. I'm still at the train station hoping the train comes back for me. And unfortunately, the train doesn't come back. Once you get left behind, you get left behind. Either you catch up on your own somehow, or that you're just gonna forever be in people's memories. Like, there's times I still see, like, people will pop up on my social medias, people from my past, and I'll be like, damn, bro. Like, damn. Or sometimes you'll see a girl that you liked or something like that on social media, and she's different now. She's a mom. She's got kids. She's like married or something, and you're like, damn, I really got left in the dust, man. I really got left behind. Society really moved on away from me, and there's like nothing I could do. There's like nothing I could do to make to bring back those times. There's nothing. I just have to accept the fact that I got left behind, man. Even it sucks, man, because you'll get left behind in everything. You'll get left behind in relationships. You'll get left behind in friendships. You'll get left behind financially. You might still be a brokey. You might still think $1,000 is a lot of money. You might still think, I don't know, all this stuff, and then people are making these big money moves, and you're still dealing with chump change, and you got left behind, man. You'll get left behind in your motion. Like I said, sometimes you'll see those guys and they have like a YouTube channel with like 5 subscribers, and they've been doing it for 20 years. They got left behind by YouTube, man. They got left behind. YouTube moved on. You'll see dudes still making like 2010 style content, and it's 2025, man. You gotta evolve. You gotta move forward. But sometimes you just get left behind, man. Sometimes you just get left behind, and there was nothing really you could ever do. There was nothing I could do about getting left behind in the realm of romance. There was nothing I could do. I was never attractive enough to get a woman. I was never suave enough to be able to persuade a woman to like me. So I just got left behind, man. I'm 27 years old. I've never had a girlfriend. About to be 28 years old. Never had a girlfriend. About to be 30. Never had a girlfriend. About to damn near be a wizard. Wizardhood only happens when you got left behind in life. No one actively chooses to be a wizard. No one actively chooses to be a wizard. That only happens to you when you get left behind. All the hobos on the street, they got left behind economically, financially. You think they wanted that shit? No, they just got left behind, man. Their brain just didn't allow them to learn any new money-making techniques, and they just stayed in the past. And it really does hurt, man, when you get left behind. Because you're still there, you're still like wondering, will people come back? Will the good old days come back? Nah, man. The good old days are never coming back, man. Those are gone. And everybody that was a part of those is gone as well. So, getting left behind, it sucks, but so be it. Peace out.